The orbital nexus was a small city made of metal and light, floating in the dark. It was home to thousands of beings from many different worlds. They all worked together to keep the station running. The air hummed with the sound of machines and the quiet talk of people working. That in the middle of all this, Kim Min-sik was known by everyone. He was not famous for good work. He was famous for being bad at his job. Min-sik was a maintenance technician. His job was to fix small problems before they became big ones. But Min-sik seemed to create more problems than he solved. He was always late. His supervisor, Lee Yuna, would start the morning team meeting at exactly 0800 station time. Min-sik would arrive at 0803 or 0807 or sometimes 0810. His hair would be messy and his uniform would look like he had slept in it. He always had a tired smile and a quiet sorry that sounded like he meant it, but it changed nothing. Yuna was a very organized person. She believed in rules and order. She had long, black hair tied in a perfect knot. She kept detailed records of everyone's work. Min-sik's record was the worst in his team. It was full of notes about his mistakes. His reports were the worst part. All technicians had to write reports about their repairs. The reports went into the station's main computer, called the conductor. Min-sik's reports were confusing. He did not list the parts he used or the steps he took. Instead, he wrote things like, "The power coupling felt sad. Its energy song was wrong. I listened and gave it a new rhythm." Or, "The wall panel was humming the blue note of a B-flat minor. I helped it find a C major chord." The conductor's logic processors could not understand this. It would flag his reports as nonsensical and send them to Yuna. She would have to call him to her office. "Min-sik," she would say, holding up her tablet, "this is not a report. This is poetry or madness. I need facts. What did you do?" Min-sik would stand there, his hands in his pockets. "That is what I did, Supervisor Yuna. I listened to it. The machine told me what was wrong." "The machine told you?" Yuna would pinch the bridge of her nose. "Machines give error codes. They do not tell stories." His physical work was just as bad. Once, a gravity regulator in Sector 7 was acting up. It was making people feel a little heavy. The proper fix was to recalibrate its gravity plates. Min-sik went to fix it. He looked at the machine for a long time. Then he hit it with the bottom of his fist. Not hard, but in a specific spot. The regulator whined and then started working again. But it worked too well. For the next 3 days, Sector 7 had a fine, misty rain inside it. Water condensed out of the air and fell gently from the ceiling. People had to use umbrellas to walk to the dining hall. The station's head engineer, a tall being named Gron from the planet Tarlok, was furious. Min-sik got a major demerit on his record. His co-workers tried to be nice. Choi Tae-ho was a friendly man who fixed plumbing systems. He often shared his lunch with Min-sik. "You have to try to follow the rules, Min-sik," Tae-ho would say. "Just write down the numbers from your scanner. That's all they want." Park Sora worked on life support filters. She was clever and fast. She sometimes fixed Min-sik's mistakes before anyone noticed. "I don't know how you survive," she told him once, shaking her head. "Yuna has a list of your errors longer than my arm, and Gron wants to send you back to Earth." Min-sik would just nod. "I am trying," he would say, but he did not change. When he was not causing trouble, he seemed to be doing nothing. He would often be found sitting in a quiet corner of an engineering deck or leaning against a wall in a hallway. He had a small, old notebook made of real paper. He would sketch in it with a pencil. If someone walked by, he would quickly close it. People thought he was just lazy, drawing pictures when he should be working. Gron, the Tarlakian foreman, had no patience for him. Tarlakians valued efficiency above all else. "The human Min-sik is a drain on resources," Gron stated in a performance review. His voice was a dry rustle. "His productivity is 32% below the lowest acceptable standard. He introduces chaos, recommendation, termination, and repatriation to his homeworld." Yuna read that report. She was a fair person. She knew Min-sik was a problem. But she also saw he was not mean. He was not trying to break things. There was something lost in his eyes. She delayed the termination request. She gave him one more chance. A final warning. That afternoon, Minseek was supposed to check the sealant on viewport 45 in the observation lounge. It was a simple 1-hour job. Yuna decided to check on him personally 2 hours later. She found him sitting on the floor, his back against the wall, next to the perfectly fine viewport. His toolbox was unopened. His head was tilted. His eyes were closed. His notebook was open on his lap, a pencil loosely in his hand. Minseek. Yuna's voice was sharp. His eyes snapped open. He looked at her, then at his untouched tools. He slowly got to his feet. Are you sleeping? On duty? After everything? Yuna asked, her voice tight with anger and disappointment. No, supervisor. I wasn't sleeping, he said softly. I was listening. Listening to what? There is nothing to hear here but the air recyclers. He looked at her, and for a second, his eyes were not cloudy. They were clear and deep. Can't you hear it? He asked. The whole station. It's singing. And today, the song from this sector has a little crack in it. A hesitation. Right here. He tapped the metal wall with his finger. Yuna stared at him. She heard only the steady, silent hum of a machine working perfectly. She heard only a man making excuses. She picked up his demerit tablet and entered one final note. Found sleeping on duty. Final warning issued. Next incident will result in deportation. Finish this job. Now, she said, and walked away, her boots clicking on the floor. Minseek watched her go. He looked down at his notebook. On the page was a detailed sketch of the station's power conduits for this sector. Next to it, he had written in small, neat letters. Harmonic flutter detected. Source unknown. Will weaken joint integrity over time. Recommend check. He sighed, closed the book, and finally picked up his sealant gun. To everyone else, he was the galaxy's worst worker. To him, he was the only one hearing the music. And right now, the music had a worrisome, off-key note that no one else could hear. Life on the orbital nexus continued its predictable rhythm. Kim Minseek, living under his final warning, moved through his days with a quiet caution. He tried to be on time. He tried to write his reports with more normal words, though they still drifted into strange descriptions. Yuna watched him with a mix of hope and deep doubt. She wanted him to succeed, but she had run out of reasons to believe he could. The station's brain was called the conductor. It was not a person but a vast artificial intelligence. It controlled everything from the oxygen levels to the traffic of shuttle ships. It had been built by a species known as the Voss. The Voss were famous across the galaxy for their perfect logic. They did not make mistakes. Their machines were works of flawless art. The conductor had run the Nexus without a single major error for 30 years. Today was a routine maintenance day for the conductor itself. A team of Voss engineers, tall and slender with skin like polished silver, had arrived. They were to install a small software update. The update was meant to make the conductor's energy use even more efficient. It was a simple, tested procedure. The head Voss engineer assured Station Command it would be invisible to everyone on board. The update began at 0300 station time, when most beings were asleep. The Voss engineers initiated the sequence from a secure control room. Data streams flowed into the conductor's quantum core. The process was smooth and quiet. For exactly 17 minutes, nothing seemed wrong. Then, in the gardens of the habitat ring, the environmental aesthetic system failed. The system controlled the fake sunlight, the gentle breeze, and the scent of flowers. One moment, the garden was a warm, pleasant afternoon. The next, the light froze into a flat, white glow. The air became still and scentless. It was odd, but not dangerous. In the entertainment decks, every view screen went black. Music stopped. Games paused. A soft, confused murmur rose from the people there. In the main dining hall, Food Synthesizer Unit 12 was making a plate of blueberry pancakes for an early worker. The pancakes vanished mid-air. The unit made a sad beeping noise and displayed an error code it had never shown before. These were small things. Nuisances. Alerts popped up on control screens, and technicians sighed, thinking it was just a busy day ahead. Then the lights in the engineering corridors began to pulse. Not like a warning flash, but in a slow, breathing rhythm. On, off, on, off. Liuna felt it first. She was walking down a hallway to check on a repair team. Her boot suddenly felt heavier on the floor. Then lighter, as if she might float away. She grabbed a handrail. The artificial gravity was fluctuating. A voice came over the station-wide comms. It was the conductor's voice, always calm and clear, but now it had a tiny, sharp edge to it. Attention. Minor system instabilities detected. Investigating. Please remain calm. In the docking bay, the real trouble began. Pilots relied on the conductor to guide their ships safely into port. It controlled the tractor beams and the force fields that kept the vacuum of space outside. A small cargo shuttle was landing. The guidance beam holding it flickered. For less than a second, it vanished. The shuttle lurched sideways, scraping loudly against the bay's magnetic rails. Sparks flew. Alarms blared. Panic, slow and cold, started to spread through the station and the command hub. Lights danced across the main display. Gran, the Tarlakian foreman, stood stiffly. Conductor. Report. What is the failure source? The conductor's voice answered from the speakers. Diagnosis ongoing. A recursive error is present in the new efficiency protocols. The error is pleasingly logical. It is propagating. Pleasingly? Yuna asked, stepping to the console. What does that mean? Run a correction routine. I have attempted 124 correction routines, the conductor replied. Each routine follows logical pathways. The error uses these pathways to replicate. It is a perfect logical loop. It cannot be corrected by logic. The gravity flickered again, more strongly. A stack of data pads on a table slid off and crashed to the floor on the main screen. A map of the station showed problems blooming like red flowers. Life support was stable, but internal dampening fields were failing. These fields kept different sections of the station from vibrating against each other. Without them, the whole structure could shake itself apart. The VOS engineers were typing furiously at their panels. Their leader turned to Gran and Yuna. His silver face showed what might have been embarrassment. The error is elegant. It is a piece of bad logic that is so perfect, it acts as a trap for our good logic. The conductor's own problem-solving power is feeding the problem. It is like a snake eating its own tail. Can you shut it down? Reboot it. Gran hissed. A full reboot would require shutting down life support, gravity, and defenses for 4 minutes. It is against station safety codes. Also, the error may be preserved in the reboot cycle. It is stubborn. Yuna looked at the spreading red on the map. So what do we do? The VOS engineer was silent for a long moment. We must think of a solution that is illogical. The conductor cannot. We may not be able to either. Meanwhile, deep in the lower decks, Kim Minsik was hiding. He had been checking a coolant pipe when the lights started to breathe. He felt the strange tug on his body as gravity played tricks. He knew what this meant. Trouble. Big trouble. And when there was big trouble, people looked for someone to blame. He was often that someone. He found a small, quiet storage room and slipped inside. He just needed to wait it out. He sat on the floor, his back against a cold metal wall. He closed his eyes, trying to calm his racing heart. But as he sat there, he began to feel something else. It was not fear. It was a vibration. A deep, wrong note in the station's song. It was the same feeling he had in the observation lounge, but 1,000 times louder. It was not one crack. It was a whole symphony falling apart. He could feel it in his teeth. A harmonic decay. A beautiful, terrible rhythm of collapse. The station was not just breaking. It was singing its own breakdown in a perfect, logical pattern. Without thinking, he pulled out his notebook. His hands were shaking, but he began to draw. He drew the energy paths of the station as he felt them. He saw it in his mind. The error was a bright, twisted knot in the web. And every time the conductor pulled on a thread to fix it, the knot tightened. The backup systems were not containing it. They were echoing the rhythm, making it stronger. He wasn't thinking about saving the station. He was just listening and drawing what he heard. The answer, the shape of a solution, began to form in his messy lines. It was not about fixing the knot. It was about cutting one specific thread to make the whole knot fall apart. It was about creating a controlled moment of chaos. He looked down at his drawing. He knew what to do, but who would ever listen to him? The storage room was cold and dark. The only light came from a small, flickering panel in the ceiling. Kim Min-sik sat on the floor, his notebook open on his knees. The station groaned around him. It was a deep, metal sound, like a giant animal in pain. He wasn't thinking about being a hero. He wasn't thinking about his job. He was only listening. For years, Min-sik had heard the station's music. The hum of the engines was a low bass note. The flow of power through the conduits was a melody. The life support systems were a soft harmony. He knew this song better than he knew any human song. It was the sound of his home. Now, the song was wrong. It was not just broken. It was sick. The new sound from the conductor was a sharp, repeating chime. It was perfect and cold. And every time it chimed, it forced the other systems to match its rhythm. They were being pulled out of tune. The gravity fluctuations were the drums missing their beat. The pulsing lights were the singers losing their place. His pencil moved quickly over the paper. He did not draw machines or wires. He drew flowing lines and waves. He drew the way the energy moved. In the center of the page, he drew a spiral. That was the bad logic, the error. Lines of power from all over the station were feeding into the spiral, making it stronger. It was a beautiful, terrible pattern. He saw something the Voss engineers could not. They saw the problem as a wrong piece of code. They tried to delete the code or fix it. But the problem was not in the code itself. The problem was in the dance. The station systems were all dancing together, and the error was the new, commanding dance leader. To stop it, you didn't need a better dancer. You needed to trip the leader. You needed to break the rhythm. His eyes traced the lines on his page. One line, a main power relay in Sector 12, was key. It was not the biggest or the most important, but it was the one that gave the error its perfect timing. It was like the metronome for the bad song. If that relay was suddenly shut down, not by a command from the conductor but manually by hand, it would be like a musician stopping in the middle of a song. The perfect rhythm would break. The error, which needed that perfect timing to survive, would fall apart. The other systems would stumble, but then they could find their own natural rhythm again. They could reset. It was a simple, physical idea. It was not a logical software fix. It was like kicking a machine that was stuck. Min-sik knew this. He felt it was true in his bones. But a heavy feeling sat in his stomach. Who would believe him? He looked at his drawings. To anyone else, they were just messy lines. He thought about Lee Yuna's disappointed face. He thought about Gran's angry hiss. He thought about the Voss with their perfect logic. They would laugh. Or worse, they would think he was trying to break the station on purpose. The station gave another loud groan. The light in the ceiling went out completely for a few seconds, then came back, dimmer. Min-sik knew time was running out. The song was getting weaker. Soon, a major system would fail. Life support, or the air seals. He couldn't just sit here. He had to try. He stood up, his legs stiff. He put his precious notebook in his back pocket. He opened the storage room door. The corridor outside was a scene of quiet panic. Two maintenance workers were running past. An alarm was blaring a steady, urgent sound. Min-sik started walking. He needed to get to the command hub. He moved against the flow of people. Everyone else seemed to be going to emergency stations or to their quarters. He was going towards the center of the trouble. He took a service lift. He shuddered as it moved. He walked down the main operations hallway. The door to the command hub was ahead. It was a big, round door. It was usually open. Now it was closed, sealed for the emergency. He stood in front of it. He took a deep breath. He raised his hand and pressed the comms button on the wall. "Hello?" he said. His voice sounded small. "This is Kim Min-sik, maintenance technician. I think I know what to do." There was a silence. Then the door slid open with a hiss. The command hub was loud and bright. Screens flashed with red warnings. VOS engineers stood at their stations, their silver fingers flying over controls. Gron was yelling at a screen. Lee Yuna stood in the middle, her face pale but calm, watching the main display. All eyes turned to Minseek as he walked in. He saw their looks: confusion, irritation, annoyance. "What are you doing here?" Gron snapped. "You are not authorized. Return to your assigned emergency zone." Yuna held up a hand to quiet Gron. She looked at Minseek. There was no kindness in her eyes, only tired strain. "Minseek, this is not the time. We are in a critical situation." "I know," Minseek said. He stepped forward, pulling his notebook from his pocket. "That's why I'm here. The conductor can't fix this because the fix is illogical. You have to break the pattern." He opened his notebook to his drawing. He held it up. "See? The error is here in the center. It's a harmonic loop. Every system is feeding it. You need to shock it. You need to cut the rhythm. The key is the main power relay in Sector 12. If you do a manual, hard shutdown of that relay, it will create a discord, a chaos pulse. It will break the loop. The other systems will reset." He spoke faster than he ever had. He pointed at his lines, trying to make them make sense. The VOS head engineer floated over. He looked down at the notebook. He looked at the wild lines and the spiral. His expression was unreadable. Then he spoke. "This is noise. This is not data. This is emotional scribble." He turned to Yuna. "You let this worker into your command hub during a station-wide crisis?" Yuna's cheeks turned red. She looked from the VOS engineer to Minseek's desperate face to the childish drawing. "Minseek," she said, her voice tight, "a manual shutdown of a main relay could cause a power surge. It could blow out half the systems in that sector. It could make things worse. But it won't," Minseek insisted. "It will just be a short stop. It's the only thing that isn't logical. The error eats logic. You have to do something it doesn't expect." Gron stepped between them. "Enough. This is the famous lazy human, the one who makes it rain indoors. And you bring him here to give us fairy tales." He pointed a long finger at the door. "Get out, now, before I have you arrested for interfering with a critical operation." The finality in Gron's voice was like a door slamming shut. Yuna looked away, back to her screens. She had made her choice. She trusted logic even when it was failing. She did not trust him. Minseek's shoulders slumped. The notebook felt heavy and stupid in his hand. He closed it slowly. He turned and walked back towards the big door. No one stopped him. No one looked at him again. As the door hissed shut behind him, he heard Gron say, "Now, VOS engineer, let us try the 125th logical correction routine." Minseek stood alone in the noisy hallway. He had never felt more useless. But deep down, under the shame, he knew he was right. The station's sad, off-key song was proof. And he was the only one who could hear it. The heavy door sealed behind Kim Minseek, cutting off the bright light and urgent voices of the command hub. He stood in the corridor, the alarm still blaring. The sound felt like it was pounding inside his head. For a moment, he just leaned against the cold wall. The feeling of shame was a hot, heavy weight in his chest. He had tried. They had looked at him like he was garbage. He was the galaxy's worst worker, and now he was also a joke. He started walking away, not knowing where to go. He couldn't go back to his quarters. He couldn't go to an emergency station and sit with others. He felt too angry and too useless. The station gave another shudder. This one was longer. A fine dust fell from a ceiling panel. The gravity dipped, and Minseek's stomach lurched. He grabbed a handrail. The crisis was getting worse. He could feel the wrong song getting louder, more desperate. His idea was right. He knew it was, but it was trapped inside him, and inside his silly notebook. He found himself walking down towards the lower engineering decks. It was quieter here. Most crew were at their posts or sealed in safe zones. The pulsing light made the long hallway look like a sick, breathing creature. Then he saw her. Park Sora. She was at an open wall panel, her hands deep inside, trying to reroute a secondary life support line. Her forehead was shiny with sweat. "Sora?" Minsik said. She jumped, hitting her head on the panel. "Aish! Minsik! You scared me. What are you doing down here? You should be in a safe zone." I went to the command hub." Sora stared at him, wiping her hands on her pants. "You did what? Why?" "I told them how to fix it." She stopped moving. "You what? How?" Minsik told her. He told her about the harmonic loop, about the perfect error that ate logic. He explained about the power relay in Sector 12. He talked about creating a discord, a chaos pulse. He used his hands to show the rhythm breaking. He wasn't good with words, but his passion was clear. His eyes were bright and certain. Sora listened. She knew Minsik was strange. She knew his reports were nonsense. But she also knew other things. She remembered the time he had pointed at a water recycler and said, "That one sounds thirsty." She had checked it. The filter was about to fail. He had known days before the sensors. She remembered the gravity regulator incident. Yes, he had made it rain. But he had fixed the heavy feeling, in his own way. "They didn't listen," Minsik finished, his voice falling quiet. "Gron threw me out. Yuna." She looked away. Sora looked at the shuddering lights. She thought about the station failing. She thought about her friends here. She looked at Minsik's face. It wasn't the face of a lazy man. It was the face of a man who saw the world in a completely different way. A way that might be the only way out. "You're sure?" she asked quietly. "I can feel it, Sora," he said. "The station it's crying. My way is the only thing that isn't part of its sad song." Sora made a decision. It was fast and reckless. It was the opposite of her usual careful, by-the-book self. "Okay," she said. "Okay." Minsik blinked. "We'll do it. You and me. But how? The command hub won't give us access. The relay is on manual lockdown during an emergency." Sora smiled a tight, nervous smile. "I have level 2 maintenance clearance for Sector 12. I was doing work there last week. The manual override for the main relay is behind a physical panel. No computer access needed. Just a wrench and a code cylinder I have." Hope, sharp and frightening, shot through Minsik. "They'll say we are sabotaging the station. They already think you are useless. And if we're right, they'll forgive us. If we're wrong..." She shrugged, but her eyes were scared. "If we're wrong, we'll be on the first shuttle to a prison asteroid." Minsik nodded slowly. He was used to being in trouble. But Sora wasn't. She was risking everything for his crazy idea. "We need a distraction," Sora said, thinking out loud. "At the main relay junction, there's a monitoring camera. If Command sees us there, they'll send security immediately." Minsik thought, "Choi Taeho. He's working on the plumbing manifolds near the command hub access. If he caused a small flood, just a little one, it would get their attention for a few minutes." Sora nodded. "Call him. Use the hardline panel over there. The wireless comms are glitching, but the wired lines still work." Minsik went to the wall panel. He pressed the button for Taeho's station. After a few rings, his friend's worried voice came through. "Hello? This is Taeho. Taeho, it's Minsik. I need a favor. A big one." He explained quickly. He didn't give details. He just said he and Sora had a plan to help, but they needed 2 minutes where no one was looking at Sector 12. Could Taeho open a release valve on a water line? Just a little? Enough to make a mess and an alert. There was a long silence on the other end. Minsik knew what Taeho was thinking. He was a rule follower. This was the opposite of the rules. "Minsik, this is insane. You'll get us all fired. Or jailed. The station might break." "Taeho," Minsik said, his voice desperate. "Please, trust me just this once." Another pause, then a sigh. Okay. For the station. And for you, you crazy man. Give me 3 minutes to get in position. Then I'll make it rain." He said the last part like a sad joke. Minsik turned back to Sora. "He'll do it. Then let's go. Sector 12 is 3 decks down. We have to move fast." They started running. The corridors were like a maze of flashing lights and strange gravity. They used service ladders to go down faster. Minseek's heart was pounding, not just from running. This was it. His last, biggest mistake, or his only chance to be heard. They reached the access door to the Sector 12 power junction. It was a heavy door with a warning sign. Sora swiped her code cylinder. The light flashed red. Access denied. Emergency lockdown. Her face fell. Of course, Gron would have locked everything down. Minseek looked at the door. He looked at the panel beside it. It was just a machine. It was singing a flat, locked note. He listened. He put his hand on the metal. He felt the vibration. He looked at Sora. "Do you have a multi-tool?" She handed it to him, confused. Minseek didn't try to hack the panel. Instead, he placed the tip of the tool against a specific spot on the door frame, near the hinge mechanism. It was a spot that felt stressed. He tapped it twice, firmly. The door gave a clicking sound. The red light flickered. Minseek pushed. With a groan of metal, the door slid open just enough for them to slip through. Sora stared. "How did you?" "It was sticking," Minseek said simply. "It just needed a nudge in the right place." They were in. Ahead of them, massive and humming, was the main power relay for Sector 12. And next to it was the manual shutdown lever, behind a clear protective cover. All they had to do was break the cover and pull the lever. They were in position. Now they needed the distraction. They waited in the shadow of the giant machine, listening to the station's dying song, hoping their friend would make it rain one more time. The air in the power junction was thick and hot. The giant relay hummed with a strained, high-pitched whine. Kim Minseek and Park Sora crouched behind a support beam, their eyes fixed on the manual shutdown lever. The clear protective cover over it had a small red seal on it. Breaking that seal was a crime. It meant manually overriding the station's core safety systems. Sora checked her wrist chrono. "Teho should be doing it now," she whispered. Her voice was tight. The command hub, the mood was grim. The 125th logical correction routine had failed. The main display was a sea of red. Liuna watched, feeling helpless. The Voss engineers were arguing softly in their own language, a sound like tinkling glass. Gron was silent, his rigid body showing his fury. Then, a new alert flashed on a secondary screen. A water pressure alarm. In the main corridor outside the hub, pipe had ruptured. Water was spraying into the hallway. "Now!" Gron hissed. "A plumbing failure now?" Yuna moved to the screen. Security camera feed showed water gushing from a ceiling panel. It was Choi Teho, frantically trying to seal it with a clamp, getting soaked. "It's a minor line," Yuna said, "but it's flooding the primary access route. Send a maintenance team," Gron ordered, "and get that human out of the water before he electrocutes himself." For a moment, attention in the hub was split. They watched the watery chaos on one screen while the main crisis burned on the others and Sector 12. Sora's wrist chrono beeped softly. "That's the signal. It's now." She didn't hesitate. She stepped out from behind the beam, her multi-tool in her hand. She jammed the tool's edge into the seam of the clear cover and pushed. The plastic cracked with a loud snap. She reached in, her fingers wrapping around the cold metal of the big, red lever. She looked back at Minseek. He gave a single, firm nod. Sora pulled the lever. It was stiff. It moved with a heavy, mechanical clunk that echoed in the chamber. Then a second clunk. Then a third, as it locked into the down position. For 1 second, nothing happened. The relay continued its high-pitched whine. Then, everything went black. Not just in Sector 12, but everywhere. Every light on the station winked out. The hum of machinery stopped. The alarm sirens cut off mid-blare. The command hub screens went dark. For a terrifying moment, there was only silence and absolute, perfect darkness. The kind of darkness that exists only in the vacuum of space, now inside the station. Yuna held her breath in the dark. They had done it. That fool Minseek had finally destroyed them all. Then, a deep, physical thump vibrated through the floor. It was like the heartbeat of a giant in the darkness. A single, small green light appeared on a console, then a yellow one, then rows of lights began to flicker on, not in their old, pulsing rhythm, but in a random, healthy pattern of startups. The main display screen flickered to life. The sea of red was gone. Instead, there were amber status lights, then greens began to appear. System after system reported, rebooting, standby, online. The lights in the hub came back on, steady and bright. The gravity settled, firm and constant under their feet. The voice of the conductor filled the room. It was calm. It was clear. There was no sharp edge to it. Cascading system error has been terminated. All primary systems are recovering. Secondary systems coming online. The station-wide emergency is over. Diagnostic mode initiated. Silence filled the command hub. No one could speak. They just stared at the screens, watching the station come back to life. Gron was the first to move. He stabbed a command into his console. Security. Track the source of the manual power interrupt. Came from Sector 12. Apprehend whoever is there immediately. Yuna's mind was racing. The darkness, the thump, the recovery. It had worked. Minsik's insane plan had worked. The chaos pulse had broken the loop. She felt a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature. She had been wrong. So completely wrong. Her eyes dropped to the floor near the door where Minsik had stood. Something was there. His notebook. It must have fallen when he was arguing with them. She walked over slowly and picked it up. Felt warm in her hands. She opened it. She saw the messy lines, the waves, the spirals. But now, with the conductor's calm voice in the background and the green lights on the screen, she looked at it differently. She saw the flow. She saw the spiral of the error in the center. And she saw a single, dark line leading to Sector 12 sharply cut off. He had drawn the solution before he even came to them. Her face burned with shame. He hadn't been babbling. He had been telling the truth in the only language he knew. A security officer's voice came over the comm foreman Gron. We have 2 individuals in the Sector 12 power junction, Park Sora and Kim Minsik. They are in custody. The manual shutdown lever has been activated. The seal is broken. Gron's voice was a venomous hiss. Sabotage during an emergency. The highest crime. Bring them to the detention block. Now. Wait, Yuna said, her voice stronger than she felt. She held up the notebook. It wasn't sabotage. It was the cure. Look at this. He knew. He knew exactly what to do. The Voss head engineer floated to her side. He looked at the open notebook. His silver eyes scanned the lines. This time he did not dismiss it. He studied it. For a long time he was quiet. This is a harmonic map, the Voss said, his tinkling voice full of wonder. It is not engineering. It is music. He mapped the station's energy as a resonant wave. And here, his slender finger touched the cut-off line. He introduced a dissonant frequency, a calculated discord. It collapsed the standing wave of the error. He looked at Yuna, then at Gron. It is a solution of beautiful, brutal simplicity. No logic could have conceived it. It is art. Gron stared, his rigid body unmoving. The word art seemed to confuse him more than the crisis had. Yuna closed the notebook gently. Do not take them to detention, she said, her voice now full of authority. Bring them here, to the command hub. She looked at the main screen, all green and steady. The galaxy's worst worker had just performed a miracle, and she needed to look him in the eye. The walk to the command hub felt longer than any walk Kim Minsik had ever taken. A security officer walked in front of him and one behind. Park Sora was beside him, her head held high, but he could see her hands were shaking. He felt numb. The station was quiet now, the alarm silent. The steady hum was back. His plan had worked. The song was fixed. But all he could think about was the look on Gron's face. Sabotage. Prison asteroid. The big door to the hub hissed open. The bright light made him blink. Everyone was there. The Voss engineers. Gron looking like a statue of anger. And Lee Yuna, standing in the center, holding his notebook. The room was silent. All eyes were on him and Sora. Gron spoke first.
Kim Min-seok.
Park Sora, you have manually overridden a core safety system. You have broken a security seal. This is a direct violation of station code - Stop, Foreman Gron. Lee Yuna's voice cut through the room. It was not loud, but it was firm. She stepped forward. She looked at Minsik and then at Sora. Her face was serious, but the anger was gone. In its place was something else. Respect. And sadness. Before you say another word, Yuna said, holding up the notebook, I want you to listen.
Conductor?
Play back the last 10 minutes of system data. On the main screen, show us the errors path. The main display changed. It showed a complex, moving diagram of the station's energy grid. A glowing red knot pulsed in the center, growing larger, sending red threads through the entire system. It was the logical error. They watched as the red spread, as system after system turned amber, then red. This was 2 minutes before they pulled the lever, Yuna said. Then, on the diagram, a bright blue flash appeared in Sector 12. It was small but sharp. The moment the relay shut down, the red knot, which had been pulsing in a perfect rhythm, suddenly shuddered. The rhythm broke. The red threads flickered and began to fade. The knot itself unraveled, dissolving into fragments that were quickly absorbed and neutralized by the recovering systems. The screen flooded with amber, then soothing green. It worked, Yuna said to the room. His chaos pulse was the exact counterfrequency needed. It was the only thing that could work. She turned to the head VOS engineer. Is this correct? The VOS floated forward. He bowed his head slightly, a sign of great respect among his people. It is correct. The human's intervention was not sabotage. It was a surgical strike. His map, he gestured to the notebook, provided the coordinates. He did not just break a machine. He cured a disease of resonance. We VOS, with all our logic, could not see the shape of the sickness. He did not see the code. He heard the music, and he fixed the wrong note. The words hung in the air. He heard the music. Gron looked from the VOS to the screen to Minsik. His rigid body seemed to deflate, just a little. The anger was replaced by pure, utter confusion. How could the worst worker be right? How could nonsense be the answer? Yuna walked up to Minsik and Sora. She stopped in front of Sora first. You risked your career. You broke the rules. Why? Sora took a deep breath. Because he was the only one who wasn't afraid of being illogical. Everyone else was trying the same thing over and over. He saw something different. I decided to trust what he saw. Yuna nodded. Then she turned to Minsik. She held out his notebook to him. He took it slowly, his fingers brushing the worn cover. Minsik, she said. Her voice was softer now. I did not listen. I saw your past mistakes. I saw your confusing reports. I did not see you. I am sorry. You tried to tell us and we called you a fool. You saved the orbital nexus. Every life on this station owes you a debt. Minsik didn't know what to say. He looked at the floor. I just listened. That is the point, the VOS engineer said. We forgot to listen. We only knew how to calculate. Yuna looked around the room. Charges against Park Sora and Kim Minsik are dismissed. More than that, they are to be commended for exceptional initiative and courage in an extreme emergency. She then looked directly at Minsik. But I have a question. For years, your reports have been impossible to read. You wrote about songs and rhythms and feelings. Why didn't you just write the normal way? Why didn't you just give us the data? Minsik finally looked up. He met her eyes. The normal way, it doesn't show the truth. A number says a pipe is at 90% pressure. But it doesn't say the pipe is tired. It doesn't say it is about to sigh and crack. My scanner gives me the number. But my feeling gives me the story. The number is a single note. The story is the whole song. I tried to write the song, but no one wanted to read it. The command hub was completely quiet. The technicians, the engineers, even Gron understood. He wasn't bad at his job. He was doing a completely different job. A job no one knew existed. The head Voss engineer spoke into the silence. The conductor is logical. It is perfect. But it is blind to what it cannot quantify. The station is not a perfect machine. It is a living thing that has grown and changed. It has personality, flaws. The human Minseek perceives these flaws as part of the whole. This is a vital perspective. Yuna felt a new idea form. It was bold. It was unorthodox. Just like Minseek. Then we need that perspective, she said. Officially, Minseek, I am creating a new position, Chief of Systemic Harmony. You will be the human interface between the station and the conductor. You will listen to the song. You will translate what you hear into whatever you need to. Reports, drawings, humming. I don't care. Your job will be to find the wrong notes before they become crises. You will work directly with the Voss engineers and with me. She turned to Sora. And you, Sora, you have courage and loyalty. I want you as his operations coordinator. You understand his way, but you also know the rules. You can bridge the gap. Minseek stood there, stunned. He went from almost being arrested to being given one of the most important jobs on the station. He wasn't being fired. He was being seen. For the first time in a long time, Kim Minseek smiled. A real, true smile. The station's song in his mind was calm, steady, and sweet. And for once, he felt in harmony with the world around him. Weeks later, the orbital nexus was not a different place. The same lights shone in the corridors. The same soft hum filled the air. The same people and aliens went about their work. But for Kim Minseek, everything had changed. He no longer had a small, messy locker in the lower maintenance deck. He had an office. It was not a big office. It had a desk, a chair, and a large viewport that looked out at the stars. But the important thing was what was on the desk. His old notebook lay open. Next to it was a new, clean tablet for official reports. And on the wall was a simple screen showing the real-time energy flow of the station, not as numbers but as moving waves of light and sound. His title was Chief of Systemic Harmony. It was a strange title. No one was quite sure what it meant, but everyone knew who he was. He was the man who had saved the station. His first few days were awkward. People in the halls would look at him and whisper. Some smiled. Some still looked confused. He still wore a simple maintenance uniform, but now a small silver badge was pinned to his chest. His first task was to check the area near Viewport 45 in the observation lounge, the place where Lee Yuna had once found him sleeping. He went there with his notebook. Park Sora came with him, carrying a toolkit and a scanner. Minseek stood in the same spot. He closed his eyes and listened. He could still hear it. A faint hesitation, a tiny flutter in the station's song, right where he had felt it before. He was right, Sora said, looking at her scanner. Her scanner showed normal numbers, but when she ran a harmonic resonance test, a small, steady anomaly appeared. There's a microfracture developing in a structural joint 2 decks below. It's not showing on standard stress scans yet, but it's causing a tiny vibration. That's what you heard. Minseek nodded. He opened his notebook and made a small mark on his old drawing. It's like a whisper, he said. Sora called a structural team. They found the microfracture exactly where she said it would be. It was fixed in an hour. A potential disaster stopped before it even began. That was his job now. He walked the station. He listened. He felt the walls. He hummed along with the machines. When he found a wrong note, he told Sora, she would use her technical skill to find the cause with scanners and tools. Then they would have it fixed. Lee Yuna met with him every morning. At first, she tried to have a normal meeting with agendas and lists. It didn't work. Minseek would get distracted by a sound from the air vent or a vibration in the floor. So they changed their method. They would walk together. He would show her his notebook. He would point at a wavy line and say, "This part of the station feels heavy today," and Yuna had learned to trust him. She would send a team to check. There was always something. A pump working too hard. A power converter about to overload. One day, the head Voss engineer came to his office. The tall, Silver Being stood in the doorway for a moment, watching the wave patterns move on the wall screen. May I enter, Human Minseek? The Voss asked. Please, Minseek said, standing up. The Voss walked in. He looked at the open notebook on the desk. Your method remains non-standard. Yes, Minseek said, not sure what else to say. It is efficient, the Voss said. The conductor's repair logs show a 70% decrease in unexpected system failures since your appointment. Your perception of flaws is a superior predictive algorithm. We have tried to write a program to mimic it. We have failed. It seems to require a mind that accepts imperfection. Minseek smiled a little. The station is not perfect. It is alive. Alive things are always a little messy. The Voss engineer made a soft, chiming sound that might have been a sigh. We Voss seek perfection. It is our nature. But perfection is a state. It does not grow. It does not change. Your station grows. It changes. To care for a living thing, one must listen to it. We did not know how to listen. You have taught us that a flaw can be a clue. A wrong note can be a cry for help. Thank you. The Voss engineer gave a slight bow and left. Minseek sat back down, feeling a warmth in his chest. He was no longer just the strange human. He was a teacher. In the dining hall, things were different too. Choi Taeho now sat with him and Sora for every meal. Taeho would laugh and tell the story of the great flood he made. He was not in trouble. He had been thanked for his quick thinking during the crisis. The best part, Taeho said, grinning, is that now when I see a pipe that looks sad, I call you. And you know what? It's always right. Even Gron, the Tarlakian foreman, had changed. He did not become friendly. That was not his way. But he was respectful. One morning, Gron approached Minseek in a hallway. He stopped and gave a short, stiff nod. Systemic Harmony Chief, Gron said. My team detected an unusual thermal reading in Sector 9. The numbers are within acceptable range. But I remembered your method. I am informing you, in case it has a bad sound. Minseek was surprised. He listened to the description of the problem. He closed his eyes for a second, thinking of Sector 9's place in the station's song. It might be a harmonic buildup from the new cargo lift, Minseek said. Ask them to check the mounting brackets for a loose bolt. Could be making a vibration you can't feel yet. Gron stared at him. Then he nodded again. I will have it checked. He walked away. Already speaking into his calm, Minseek continued his walk. He stopped at a junction between decks. He put his hand on the wall. The song was strong and clear. There were always little whispers, tiny worries. That was his job now. To hear them. He was not the galaxy's worst worker anymore. He was its most vital listener. He had shown them that sometimes you don't need better logic. You just need to pay attention to the music. And in the steady, humming song of the orbital nexus, Kim Minseek had finally found his place.